Hello and welcome to PMI's Leading for Business Excellence podcast. I'm Susanna Clark, Managing Partner of PMI, the performance improvement consulting, training and apprenticeship firm. This podcast brings inspiring stories from across the globe and from a multitude of different sectors as we talk with great leaders who share their experience and what business excellence means to them. My guest today has spent half their career working in the charity sector and the other half in commerce. So it's really interesting to hear Steve Vaid's perspective on business excellence and the results that have been achieved in these different sectors. Having recently started as CEO with the Money Advice Trust, Steve shares his insights on what he's paid attention to in his first 90 days. And if you're a fan of those wonderful guide dogs and the positive impact that they have on people living with sight loss, listen out to Steve's great examples of using business excellence to support more people with successful dog partnerships. Do enjoy this episode. So I'm really delighted to have Steve Vaid with me in the Leading for Business Excellence podcast studio today. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Hi, Sue. It's really good to see you again. Pleasure to be here.
So I wondered if you could just start off by introducing yourself to our listeners, please.
Yeah, I'm Steve Vaid. I'm currently the CEO of Money Advice Trust. We look after people in financial distress. I spent probably half my career in the charity sector and half in the commercial sector. So trained as an engineer, spent most of my time in London, but also volunteering in Africa and latterly working in Australia.
Thank you. And talking about, you say you spent about half of your professional career in the charity sector. So I'm interested in, what you've seen as the differences, if there are any at all, in terms of that kind of business excellence, process improvement that you paid attention to in the charity sector.
It's interesting because I think a lot of charities don't think about process improvement per se. I think it's more prevalent from what I've seen in the commercial sector, but bringing those skills and those problem-solving kind of toolkits into the charity sector, I think for me has been amazing. There's just the depth of improvement you can uncover, and I think because many of the colleagues I've worked with over those sort of 15 years in the charity sector haven't necessarily been trained or been aware of or been exposed to. There isn't a structure there, but as soon as you start, working with people, training people, educating them on problem solving, for example, it's all there for the taking and for the improvement for the customer for impact. So actually, I think it's probably got a bigger role because of the base in terms of voice of customer in the charity sector than I've had in the commercial sector. So it's been a real huge crossover.
And we've worked, with a small number, only a couple of charities. And it's, they have been very keen to make the most of how they work. So their improvements have been very focused upon their operations, understandably so. They want as much as the donations to go towards the end charity goal as opposed to running the machine that runs the charity. So completely get that. But I was always fascinated with you in your role, particularly at Guide Dogs, where you weren't only focused on the operational improvement opportunities, but also, the work that we did with the dogs. And I'd be really love to hear a bit more about that, and whether you saw that as different as well.
Yeah, that was really interesting because we really did start with the customer perspective and what does the customer need. And what we realized was that we didn't really have a very clear view on what the key metrics of success were from a customer perspective,
Right.
what really made a difference. So, real amazing heritage organization, people love the guide dogs. But when I joined, it felt like we've been doing the same thing the same way for quite a while. And actually, one of the things that the CEO at the time told me probably in the first week I joined was, the length of time it took to train a guide dogs was increasing every year. And his big concern was, are we producing enough guide dog partnerships? So I really started with the voice of the customer. What was going right for us? What wasn't? What we weren't doing so well? And I spent a lot of time actually with people with sight loss, sitting in their houses over a coffee, listening to them about the journey they'd undertaken to be partnered with a guide dog. And one of the key things I learned in those conversations, just listening to our customers, was the anxiety around the initial point of bringing the guide dog and the person together. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. Can you unpack that for me? And I remember one person telling me, they hadn't met their guide dog until right at the end. I was like, wow, so how did we actually train the guide dog to fit your needs? And so what we uncovered was that there was a larger number of guide dogs kind of bouncing back within the first 3 months of a partnership than we ever anticipated. And we didn't know why. And we weren't actually measuring that, and we weren't improving on that. So we had something like 26 teams all over the UK, and we got them to create a visual management board in each one of the offices and track a number of just very simple key metrics around what quality meant, what delivery meant, what cost meant, what people meant. And the improvement was incredible, because I remember one team where we discovered that almost a third of their dogs came back within a few months. We didn't know why, but we started unpacking it dog by dog, partnership by partnership, person by person, and they just their improvement was off the charts. By the end of the first year, I think they were up to about 90% plus partnerships, staying out there, being committed to their new owner, which is fantastic.
Fantastic, because there's all of the satisfaction that's associated with that, but the underlying piece is, of course, there's cost, isn't there?
Right.
The cost to you as a charity for the bounce back would have been really hard to cope with and manage.
Well, exactly, because then there's a whole process of retraining or rehousing or rehoming or retiring and discovering why that didn't work, and that costs valuable pounds as well. I think the stat we used at the time was, it cost us something like £50,000 to train a guide dog. It's a lot of investment, and that's all, very valuable public donations, which it was for guide dogs. It was all individuals, trusting us with their money to do the best job that we could.
I remember visiting your breeding centre and walking in, and as you say, seeing all the control charts on the wall.
I mean, that was a really interesting part of the journey, because I took all our senior management team up to the engine management plant up in North Wales, the Toyota factory up there. And that was kind of a revelation to us, because, at the time, everyone said, like, we're doing nature here, Steve. We've got dogs, we look into their eyes. We, it's about nature and nurture. You can't bring in processes. It's different. So I took something like 20, 30 of our top managers up to this engine management plant up in North Wales. I said, like, just give me a day. And if we come out of this day with Toyota not learning anything or not seeing anything that's applicable to what we do, then great. We'll drop the whole thing. We'll do something different. And I remember sitting down there with my team, and the guys at Toyota were amazing. They gave us a whole day, looking around the factory and the plant there. And the first thing I remember their senior manager there said was, today's Tuesday. By tomorrow, we will have improved. And I was like, wow. I was looking around the room. I said, that's great, because, can you actually, how do you back that up? He said, well, I've got 1,000 people working there, which happened to be the same number of employees we had at Guide Dogs. And he said, everyone has an objective to come up with 2 ideas for improvement. I was like, great, 2,000 ideas every year. That's brilliant. He was like, no, 2 ideas every month.
Wow.
And that's what really got the ball rolling for us, saying, we've got 1,000 staff members, we've got 16,000 volunteers, we've got an amazing amount of heritage and experience. Let's use that to improve. And in the breeding center, it was amazing, because we had all these amazing spreadsheets with genetics, matching and pairing. And Matt, at the time he ran the breeding center, just got control charts from the get-go. And he was plotting them out in terms of successful breeding, successful pairing. There's a downside as well, because sometimes puppies don't make it. Um,
Mm.
why they didn't make it, linking it back to parentage, genetics, and all that kind of stuff. It was amazing.
I remember talking to one of the team about the dogs that don't make it. I mean, at birth, so
That's
stillbirth.
right.
What had changed through the use of the statistical process control was knowing when to react, because
Exactly.
some degree is normal and to be expected. So instead of treating every one as an assignable cause, oh my goodness, we need to do something about this, actually it made, I'm not saying no one took it for granted, but everybody understood what was normal and what was not normal.
Exactly. And that whole kind of philosophy about, if it's happening over the upper control limit 7 times in a row, there's something going on in the system, was really drilled into us. We picked that up straight away. But other times we go, look, no, actually, this is fine. There's something going on. We've got to monitor it and understand why. But actually, it's not an emergency. We've still got
Yes.
this. We're within our limits. And that concept of having an upper and lower limit was really new, because when something didn't quite go to plan, typically everything would go off the radar and we'd all react to it. Whereas it brought a kind of calmness to the process as well, going, we can observe it, we can see what's going on, we've got the data, and luckily we had lots of historic data we could map as well. So it gave us a longitudinal view of what was going on. And that's great, because then you make better decisions, I think.
Yes. And you made me laugh when you said about this is all sort of touchy feely. You got to look the dogs in the eyes, because again, I remember a similar conversation about the process of teaching a dog to walk,
Yeah,
um, and the desire to reduce how many weeks that took,
right.
and to standardize the process so that all of the trainers taught the dogs in the same way.
I remember one of the first questions I asked was, where's the book? Can I read the book about how to train a guide dog? And it's like, there's no book. It's kind of organic. So I kind of set myself the mission there to go, well, let's create the standard, the benchmark globally for doing this really, really well. And, personally, I've never been afraid of looking to others for inspiration and ideas. So I did a bit of a road trip and met some amazing guys in Japan, in Europe, in the States, who were all training guide dogs in slightly different ways. With the team, we were able to pick some of the really good ideas and go, if we join these together with our ideas and our thinking, I wonder how far we could go. And I think
Yeah.
by the time when I joined, it was about 36 weeks to train a guide dog. By the time I left, we'd proven you could do it in 13 weeks. If you look at improvement, if you look at the whole value chain, if you look at every single step, how it all links together, and you empower your people to, express their ideas and thoughts, you can make a radical improvement to something that you thought was immovable.
And the piece around going outside your organization, there are a lot of times where people become quite insular.
Yeah,
They keep looking inside for improvements, which is good, good that you are looking to improve, but actually the value of what does the outside world do?
yeah.
And even if you're in a competitive market and you don't want to go to one of your competitors, there are other, similar markets that you can look at.
To one side, I looked at car manufacturing, because we thought about process and production lines. But to the other side, when we looked the other way, we looked at zoos, for example. I know, it's not probably the right place to look, but one of our trainers used to train dolphins in in zoos. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. I wonder how they do it. I may not
Yes.
agree with it, but I wonder how they do it. So yeah, we were able to look sideways and discover things that really surprised us in terms of transferability.
Yeah.
And also
Yeah.
as a charity then, partnership, obviously we worked really closely with PMI, which is great. But we also got guys in from Toyota, Peugeot, Citroën, JLR, just to come and share their expertise. I remember taking some of the Jaguar Land Rover guys around, and I showed them all our visual management boards that we designed with you. And they were like, well, how long have you been operating like this? I said, about 18 months, 2 years. They were like, wow. In some of our teams, it's taken us 15 years to get to where you've got to in a couple of years. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
we really surprised ourselves in terms of what we could do.
And then you, as you say, you headed off to the other side of the world when you finished with at Guide Dogs and you went back into financial services.
Yeah, it was really interesting for me. I mean, I've been really lucky because I've been able to work, in some really interesting environments. But I got to the point where I thought, okay, I've introduced a lot of new thinking and ways of doing things into the charity sector and into guide dogs and RNIB and the charities I'd worked with as a trustee. Um, I wonder what I'm kind of missing out on. What's happening in the commercial sector that I need to know about now to bring back in to the third sector. So, we've got amazing opportunities as a family to move to Australia to work for AMP, who's one of the top 4 or 5 banks in Australia. I was lucky enough to work for them before in the UK. And it was interesting, 20 years later, to kind of end up in one of their exec teams on the other side of the world and go, you don't often see that transition in an organization to go, where were we 20
No,
years
you
ago
don't.
and where are we
Yeah,
today? And then
yeah.
what's next?
And how did you find also that whole culture shift again out of the charity third sector back into financial services?
Again, it was really interesting because one of the things they were really interested in was, what we bring from the charity sector into the commercial sector. Because the area of the business I was looking after was superannuation, life insurance, pensions, and banking, and it was all about the customer. And I talked a lot to my team about some of the things we've done at Guide Dogs, our attitude to customer, voice of customer, how we brought that into play. Um, and we really then started focusing on Net Promoter Score, unpacking calls, looking at voice analysis and sensitivity analysis, vulnerability. And it was amazing. We'd really fixated on everything designed customer first. And the team reacted so
Mm.
well to it. I think, we lifted our NPS scores from like plus 60, which is pretty good anyway, to about plus 80. I remember during the staff retention was a real problem. We were losing 50% of our staff within 12 months, and by the time I left, that we were up to about 80% retention. So it was
Wow.
huge. But what was really kind of challenging there was like almost on the first day I arrived, we were into crisis mode because there'd been a royal commission instigated into banking and financial services. So suddenly, press, media, everything was around what banks were doing really badly, rather than what banks were doing really well.
Yeah.
And that had a huge cultural and morale impact on all our staff, which we had to carry them through. And then we were coming out the back end of that, and we were straight into COVID. So there was another crisis,
Right.
but we were almost crisis ready by that point, and it didn't really
Yes.
phase us. So I remember very clearly the day where we made the call as the first, probably the first banking contact center in Australia to go completely hybrid and go get everyone back into their homes to work.
And the customer focus, did that come out of that initial work that you had to do because of the inquiry that had gone on?
Yeah, that threw up a lot because our organisation at the time was very vertically integrated, so we had to decompose that. There was a lot of questioning at the Royal Commission, so a lot of the senior management were questioned in public on TV about customer processes. When do you
Mm.
charge people? When do you not charge people? When do they start with you? When do they end with you? How do you fix your commissioning on their savings or their premiums? It was all exposed to the public in a very brutal way. It was really hard to watch. Your
Yes.
colleagues getting questioned like that in public forum and being openly criticised, and it all came back down to customer and the customer process. And that really informed us going forward. Then we need to design things end to end, work really close with product. We really understood what the outcomes were for each product and what the process was, how we would handle all the situations, and particularly around vulnerability in the contact center. So it was really really hard at time, but it gave us a really good platform going forward. And once the business was separated up and we had a different set of businesses to run with a different set of processes.
I mean, obviously, you have that crisis going on, as you say, and it's very publicly being aired. How did you get the kind of the discretionary efforts of the people to work with you to make these changes?
We did I think two major things really. One is we really amplified the voice of the customer. So in our exec meetings, we started with phone calls that we obviously recorded them all the time, but we picked out calls where, for example, our customers was just really at the end of the road in terms of their financial well-being.
Mm,
And we listened to them as an exec and unpack them and what's our role in this? What do we need to do? And then we use them sort of snippets of those conversations back with our teams and got them to really understand, where's the improvement on the back of this? What did we do not so well? What can we do really, really well?
mm,
And then we just really majored on internal communication, be it photos, videos, blogs, emails, small little posts, fun stuff and serious stuff, really keeping
mm,
everyone informed of, exactly what was going on in the business, in a very short, snappy way. So we never, I never wrote long emails because everyone's really
mm,
busy. You need to engage
mm.
people really quickly with your comms. They need to understand what's really important to them about it. And I think I mean, we actually counted up that period between March 2020 and probably September 2020 when it was peak COVID in Australia, and everyone was like, our Indian teams were under curfew. There was major lockdowns in Australia and New Zealand. I think something like we put out 4,000 individual items of communication
Wow.
across that kind of 4 or 5 month period, all at different levels. Some of them, we actually sent out food parcels to people. Some were postcards. I'd write postcards and thank you to people so they got them in their homes. We had stuff on our intranet. We had, more serious kind of stats on how we were supporting customers, because one of the things that the Australian government implemented was a release of their superannuation funds, so people could apply for emergency funds from what effectively was their pension pot. So we kept staff really updated on, I know it's really hard. We're all working in a very different way, but look what we're doing for our customers.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, at any level, it isn't often that you see that level of attention from a leader to be doing that kind of gifting, if you
Yeah,
like,
yeah. And it wasn't,
uh,
that was all our,
sharing in that
yeah.
way.
And all our leadership team was brought into that, which was brilliant. And we'd like, here's the idea, let's just do it. What's the worst thing that could happen? You know,
Yeah.
um, and we just harvested so many good ideas. So, and I'm
Mm.
not sure other organisations around the world did it, but there's just that one. I remember the one that really struck me was, look, we're all in a different place doing the same work that we did before. Share your place. And we've never seen
Yeah.
anyone else in the, like we're doing today. We've never seen anyone else in their
Yes.
home workplace. And you suddenly got a really good idea about the sacrifices that our team had made to kind of work with a laptop on on their knees in a really
Mm.
cramped environment because they're in a house share or someone's environment surrounded by 5 kids trying to do the same job they were trying to do. It was just
Exactly.
amazing, and that gave us so much more most gave so much momentum and spirit, to do more.
I mean, people would say perhaps before COVID, oh, well, I always talk to my colleagues at work, around a coffee machine or whatever it would
Yep.
be, walking down a corridor to get to a meeting room. But actually, the visualization, as you say, of someone's home, the visualization of their cat that jumps on the desk and goes across the camera,
Right.
the dog that barks, the DPD driver arriving, whoever it may be. I think it brought us all closer, that we all got to really know each other
Yeah.
much more than
Absolutely.
than on a human
And
level.
I think as in a leadership role, it enables you to try so many different things, and it was more
Mm,
acceptable. That kind of human centered or human that human touch to your communications. It gave us more opportunities to do things. So I remember once, the team said, "Can you just make a video of how we're doing?" I said, "Okay, but I'm on the kitchen table. I normally have Alf sitting next to me, our son, who's doing his homework. So why don't I just get him to interview me?" He did. He did this beautiful interview about,
fantastic.
what do you think about COVID, Dad? How's your team doing? What have you done differently? What have we learned? And I think that got more views than anything else I'd ever done because it was that kind of human touch.
And out of interest, so having moved into hybrid working, is that something they've
I
sustained?
think
A more hybrid
yeah, for our
approach?
operations teams, we regularly checked in with them, and no one wanted to come back. It was like, this is brilliant. We love working this
Yeah.
way. It gives us freedom to do stuff. It takes, in a major city, an hour and a half commute both ways, out of your
Yeah.
day. It enables you to do so much more stuff. So there was really, a strong desire to keep that model of working in place. Um,
Mm.
and I think, even now when I look at the organisation and with today at Money Advisors, we're hybrid, but I still know we haven't quite got it right. This is not the end game yet. We don't know what it is, and we're
Mm.
still trying to work that out.
Did you come up against, because there's been an awful lot of press about hybrid working and about certain leaders wanting to get people back to work, back to the
Yeah.
office. A perception by some, not necessarily proven by all, that productivity has declined as people are working from home. That's some people's perception. Um, did you find that you were facing some of those barriers or viewpoints?
Certainly at A&P, we didn't see any productivity declining. It was actually went the other way, it improved.
Right.
So it was good. Where we saw, and we haven't cracked this yet either, I don't think, where we saw problems or difficulties, let's say, was when we had new joiners. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously we were running, operations teams where we took people on in kind of, batches of 5, 10, 15 sometimes to work on our teams. And that's where we realized we need to make an extra effort to connect people and
Mm.
to bring people in and
Yes.
to really enable them to spend time with their peers and the wider organization in a different way. Because we got to a period where we realized that people had joined and they'd never ever met anyone in person, and we're like, this is not right either.
Yes. And possibly never even the person who hired them, because
Right,
those interviews were often done virtually, weren't they, as well?
right. I mean, it was the same for me when we decided to move back from the UK. I did all my interviewing between Sydney and London via
Mm.
Teams.
So you came back to the UK, and what stimulated that for you?
Um, I think definitely during COVID, you realize how far away you are from friends and family and people you've known for a long, long, long time. So whilst it was a really, really good experience, I met some wonderful people in Oz, and it was great to get to know the country and get involved in the sport and the culture there. It was probably the right time for us as a family to kind of come back and reconnect with our people here.
But in making that choice, you also chose to come back to the third sector.
Yes, I think I did realize that was where my kind of heart and passion really was, and where I can make the most difference. So
Hmm.
that was kind of a bit of a no-brainer for me. It was like, yeah.
And I'm always interested in that kind of first 90
Hmm.
days particularly of a leadership role. What are the things that you pay attention to? You've just not long finished your first 90 days at Money Advice Trust. So what sort of things have you been looking at? What sort of things have you been doing as a new CEO?
So we've got about 320 people. We work with about 200,000 people every year, and we help them manage about £3 billion of debt. So that's our
Goodness.
work. And I said this to the management team before I even joined. First thing I'm going to do, or we need to do actually, is meet every single person. They were like, "Yeah, right. You're going to do that." I am, and I'm down to the 5 people to go, I think. So I've had a chance to listen to everyone. Be in small team settings, sometimes together, sometimes virtually, but no more than like 10 or 12 people in a group, and really focused on listening to them. I've asked everyone the same 3 questions. What's it like to work here? What would you change? And tell me about what our customers are telling us.
Okay.
And I've been able to kind of just join the dots on those 3 after about, 300 odd conversations, to focus our strategic thinking on the important things for the next 3 to 5 years. So
Right.
one of the for me, one of the most important things is, if you listen to the front line, you will absolutely get, the solid truth, but you'll get
Mm.
nuggets of gold in terms of improvement, ideas, thinking. And as a leader, then it's your job then to turn that into action and to harvest it and to amplify it. So that was the first thing for me: meet everyone. The second one was data. So where's our data? What do we measure? Why do we measure it? Why is it important? Are we measuring the right stuff? Is it making a difference to our customers? And then working with the board to go, okay, where do we want to be in 5 years' time? What does that really look like in terms of an outcome? And then linking all that together. So going in people, impact on our customers, where do you want to go next? And then what the means to doing all that. So that's pretty much been my first 90 days.
And there's a sense around, what you've been doing. Sometimes some of the sort of pushback that I hear is, well, people have got lots of good ideas, but they're just not practical. I wonder what you feel is different as somebody who really believes in the value and the power, I guess, of improvement and improvement thinking and working together to see what is the art of the possible.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we have a tendency, I guess, as humans and as people working in operation environments to think we know the solution. So it's been really important for me to go, no, pull back from how and keep thinking about why and what. So I've been in these listening sessions where someone's gone, no, I think there's a problem with this. And I go, great. I think you can solve that. I don't need to solve that. Why don't you give it a go?
Yeah.
And just slowly introducing some, problem solving techniques and going like, why don't you give it a go? Test it on a small scale, and then we'll have a look. And that kind of disruption, some people love, and some people absolutely kind of, do not like it at all. But I've done it kind of purposefully to go, I want to see how good our problem solving muscles are. How much are we prepared to back our people in trying stuff, and how skilled are they at doing it?
I like that sense of the muscle too.
Yeah.
Developing that muscle and that's that brain muscle
Yeah.
that thinks in that way, that is curious naturally. And
It's interesting because it takes time to get really good at problem solving, I think.
yeah,
And I'm not going to do it for everyone. I can't. So I need everyone to get to a level of solving problems in different ways, but with a
yes,
structure that we can all understand. So the
yes,
A3 has been
yes.
really important. It's like, try and fill that template out and see how far you get, and then we'll come back and have another conversation. And it's interesting that the first time you see people doing the A3, they kind of jump from here's the problem to here's the solution.
And also, just because that might be a good idea does not mean it's the solution.
Right.
It's just a good
It's just a
idea,
good idea. Right. And
Yeah.
what are the other good ideas? Who else
Yeah,
have you
that's
involved in
right.
this? So it's been really interesting, that first
I remember
few
working with a
weeks.
client ages ago who had a good idea, and because it was a problem driving him nuts, and he was in a position to be able to throw some money at it, and he he said to me, this is the answer.
Right.
This is what
Right.
we're going to do. And what they were going to do, it had an impact on every customer.
Right. Wow.
And I said, just checking, have you thought of doing a sample?
Yeah. A little bit of a test. Yeah.
And he's yes, and it was, we don't have time. We have to fix this. I said, Hugh, can we talk about risk?
Yeah.
And I know you don't want to talk about risk, but what would it take that long just to test something with 100 people, rather than the 12,000 customers, and just try it and see what they think? That sense that having a test is not only valuable but is absolutely essential. It isn't always a just do it.
I think that's one of the most important things I learned, in my kind of process improvement journey was, that the ability to test and learn, take a small scale, and then go, right, what do we do? How do we act on this? Is it scalable? Did it come out with the result we anticipated? Could we be better, actually? Could we get a better,
Yes.
result or a better outcome? I think it's brilliant.
The difference, though, is perhaps that so many people spend a lot of their lives effectively firefighting.
Yeah,
Things have gone wrong, so I run out, and therefore speed is an imperative. Everyone wants it sorted quickly. They want to stop whatever's causing it, and they want to stop any impact.
right.
And process improvement doesn't have to be slow, but it doesn't have to be done at that faster pace. And actually, you can do some small iterative cycles and get there quite quickly. But because you're doing iterative cycles, you're only impacting a small amount of people in that testing
Yeah,
your theories phase.
exactly. And there can be small things. One of the things we're testing at the moment is what happens at the end of a shift or end of the work
Hmm.
day when someone's on a call and they're 5 minutes away from going home and someone calls, because some of our calls can be really, really emotional. You got someone who's
Yeah.
doesn't know what to do. Their debts are so
Mm.
overwhelming, and those conversations could be 3 hours long. So
Mm.
you can
Mm.
imagine the situation. You're 5 minutes away from going home, and the call comes in, and it could be 3 hours long. And we're doing a really small kind of test and learn on one team to go, how do we do that end of work pattern better? That works for
Mm.
the customer, works for you. Do we have an extra, evening shift? How do we wrap up? How do we hand over? What's the right thing to do, starting with the
Yes.
customer?
Yes. Yes.
And that's, in the grand scheme of things, it's 5 minutes at the end of a day that we're trying to fix,
Yes.
but it's huge
Yes.
impact for the
But the
customer.
huge impact for the customer, yes. And the difference between not answering the phone as
Yeah.
well and just thinking,
Well, equally huge impact for our staff, because if someone's 5 minutes off picking up the kids, it's a big
yeah,
deal.
it's a
So,
big deal.
we have to
Absolutely.
be conscious of that and get it right.
Yeah. So, in all the work that you've been doing recently, what's your current thinking on what the journey will look like for Money Advice Trust?
I think we're in a really interesting time in our journey. We've been going back 20 odd years, but I think right now we've got a kind of lineup of new government, new leadership in the organisation. We've got a great board. We've got great people with good tenure who are really committed. And I guess I'm trying to um, really get to think about disruption, about innovation, about technology, just about how we can actually bring about systemic change um, to what we do to the UK economy. So
Mm.
a lot of it is about data, a lot of it is about process. And I think we've underestimated the impact we actually make. So I kind of did a little calculation the other day. When I wonder how much debt we actually help people with. It came out to be 3 billion.
Mm.
It's like, wow, that's a lot. Did we
It's
know that
vast.
number? And
Yes.
do we talk about that number? So I think there's a lot more. We know intuitively that we do a really, really good job. And you just got to look at the customer verbatums and the NPS that'll tell you
Hmm.
that. I think the real challenge for us now as organizations to go, well, what impact does that make? And
Mm.
actually, what systemic change does it lead to help prevent debt, help people not falling back into debt, or help managing debt better?
Mm.
Because we've got 8 million people who are kind of overwhelmed by the financial position,
Yes.
and that's got
Yes.
worse and worse. So, I think
Yes.
it's incumbent on us to find bigger and better ways of addressing that. Yes, we can give everyone
Mm.
advice, which is great, but how do we get to root cause? How do we actually prevent it?
I was going to,
How do
yes.
we broaden our reach? That's the journey for us.
Mm.
And that's linked back to inevitable in the charity sector. How do we fund the mission? How do we improve it? How do we create efficiency so we can spend more time and money working with our customers? For me, it's been great, moving from financial services into financial services, but from a very different perspective.
Yes.
Because obviously, the
Yes, indeed.
the debt kind of and arrears that some of our customers are facing is from financial services, energy, government
Mm.
bodies. It all kind of builds up. So I'm kind of facing the other way now, which is really interesting, and
Yes.
talking to um, some really interesting and very passionate colleagues in the financial services sector about how we can work together to help people out of their crisis situations and arrears. And people still find it very, very difficult to talk about. breaking just that first barrier of like, I'm just going to talk to someone about it, is really important. And we've got, so many amazingly qualified money advisors who, have that huge empathy, and they've helped, 100,000 people. So just the listening is really important at the start.
Yeah. Steve, thank you for your time today. I know you're incredibly busy and you've got a lot on, and you've got big goals to achieve. So it's really great that you gave us the time today to talk.
Brilliant, Suze. It's been great talking to you. Good to connect again. Thanks a lot.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Leading for Business Excellence with Steve Vaid. If it's inspired you to think about the challenges that you may face or your leadership team face and how you respond to them, do get in touch via team@pmi.co.uk, or of course you can look at our website. We have a leadership development programme in the training section. Do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you.